The Memphis Grizzlies firing Taylor Jenkins has me shocked, just like it has everybody else in the basketball world shocked. This is something that I was not expecting. This is something that I've never seen before. I don't think I've ever seen a coach be fired this late into the season on a team that is not only a playoff team, but a strongly positioned playoff team. Like the Memphis Grizzlies are 44 and 29. They're currently the fifth seed out west, which we know how dangerous and lethal the Western Conference is when it comes to high caliber teams. And we still have a couple of weeks left of the season. They could very well move up, right? They could be the fourth seed and get home court advantage. They could even fight with the Denver Nuggets and get the third seed. Now, how likely is these outcomes? I'm not sure, but it's still a possibility. So I say all that to say that they're solidified in the Western Conference as a legitimate playoff team, and no matter what matchup they end with, they're going to have a chance to win that series. The 4-5 matchup is usually the closest and strongest matchup in the playoffs because both teams are so close to each other. So for a coach to be fired at this point of the season, it's just, again, something that I'm not used to seeing, and I think this is something that I don't want to be used to seeing. I don't think we should get used to seeing this. This is kind of uncharted territory, but here we are. And like I said, on the surface level, the Memphis Grizzlies are 44 and 29, and you kind of scratch your head saying, what are they doing? Why would you fire your coach, this abruptly at this point of the season? But when you go and you think and you try to connect all the dots and figure things out, we have Ja Morant, who's associated with the Grizzlies. He does their ESPN radio or whatever. He says the Grizzlies have beaten one team over 500 since February 3rd. It was the Mavericks on March 7th, and they were missing 8 players. So this last stretch of the new year with the Memphis Grizzlies have not been that well. It hasn't gone, perfectly. And things like this happen around the NBA. A lot of teams have not played their greatest basketball. I'm not trying to compare the Memphis Grizzlies to the Cavaliers or anything, but we just saw the Cavaliers dominate and then have a 4-game losing streak, and a lot of people tried to act like it was the craziest thing on earth. When I was diving deeper into the Memphis Grizzlies, a couple of things came to mind. If you watch my channel or you watch my content, you would know that a few months ago, I made a video about the Grizzlies. I made a video about the Grizzlies and their coaching staff and their front office and just how incredible they've been with, identifying talent and developing it and, trying to bring in all of these different minds and everything. And a lot of it went over my head. When they brought in Thomas Ilo from the Paris team that won the EuroLeague Cup and had an incredible offense that they had, I was looking at it as them just kind of buffing up the assistant coaching situation. They brought in Noah LaRoche. They brought in a bunch of guys. I'll leave that video at the end of this video as a recommended if you guys want to go and resurface that Memphis Grizzly video I made that kind of broke down that and all the developmental coaches that they brought in and everything. But now that this happened and I'm able to go and connect the dots, a lot of it makes sense. And I'm not here to cause any speculation. I'm not here to throw out any allegations. But it's something that kind of makes it seem like maybe the Memphis Grizzlies were doing that to let us know that Taylor Jenkins was kind of on the hot seat, right? So there's a couple of perspectives we can go with this. Number one, you bring in those guys with my first thought to strengthen the coaching staff, right? We understand the Western Conference is continuing to get better. We are not a free agent destination, so we're not going to go out here and be, getting all of these different guys left and right like some of the other teams, the Lakers and the Knicks are always bottled up with somebody, even a Philadelphia or Miami, the Golden States of the world. We're not on par with that as far as being a destination that attracts players year in and year out. We're aware with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to strengthen our strengths, which is identifying talent, developing talent, and then coaching talent. And I feel like they've done that really, really well over the last few years, which is why they've been, for the most part, a really good team. Like, let's not forget that Taylor Jenkins is one of the most, if not the most successful Memphis Grizzly coach ever. He has the most wins. I think he's second in playoff wins. He's done a really good job with this team, like a phenomenal job, no matter how you feel about him, because I've seen different people say different things. And I think that's always going to be the issue with coaching. One person can like the way a person coaches. Another person can hate it. To some people, you're a good coach. To another person, you may be a bad coach. We don't have to really spend too much time with that. So I thought that they were, again, strengthening up their strengths. Now, one of the things that popped in my mind when this firing first happened was, maybe they really love Ilo so much, and they fear that they're going to lose him because when that offseason comes and somebody parts ways with a coach, because it happens every single year, they were scared they were not going to be able to retain him, which is something that I said in that video months ago with, hey, he's their assistant coach for now. He's such an incredible basketball mind, and what he was able to do with that Paris team over there in the Euro League, and when you check his background and how progressive his basketball coaching is and the style, he's not going to sit on somebody's bench and be an assistant coach for long, especially when you look at a team like the San Antonio Spurs with the question mark of if Pop is going to return, and if he does, how long. And I don't know if they're committed to Mitch Johnson. The Spurs may have it all figured out, but I'm just going off and just showing you how my brain is working in real time. It's like, hey, we won't be able to keep this guy, and we're more interested in his new philosophy than we are with Taylor Jenkins. Maybe the Grizzlies felt like, we know what Taylor Jenkins is, and as good of a coach he is, there's still another level we have to get to as a team, and we just don't believe he's our guy. Now, that may just be it. What I just said may be the reality of it, where, again, Taylor Jenkins has been phenomenal. That's everything Kleiman said in his statement today after the firing. Like, hey, we appreciate Taylor Jenkins. We wish Taylor Jenkins the well. He's done nothing but good for us. But and this is now me speaking, because obviously Kleiman would put a but in it. But when we look at the Western Conference, we look at how the NBA is going, we don't feel like we're at that level, and there is something that we need to do to put us in position to one day get to that level. And again, they may be looking at it from a coaching standpoint, because it's not too much they're going to be able to do with their roster unless they make a really, really, really crazy big move, which I wouldn't take off the table at this point. The way they just clean house, everything is possible. I wouldn't look at them trying to rebuild, but, retooling, Kevin Durant being available this offseason, like, I don't know. I'm not leaving anything off the table for the Grizzlies for the foreseeable future, now that they've committed to Ilo as being their head coach. Now, what I was going to say originally was not that they set him up or blindsided or did him dirty, because, again, I don't want to cause any friction or, say anything. But when I just sat and thought and dug deeper a little bit with this team, a lot of the things make sense. When you think about the way Ilo wants to play and has played with his own teams, because you have to understand, Noah Roach is a guy that came in and had this offensive style that he built out at the Division II level, I believe, and the Memphis Grizzlies brought him on, and it's an offensive system that relies on less pick and roll and is more open, and, it's different. And obviously, Ja Morant has came back this year. He's dealt with his fair share of injuries and being readjusted to a new team, because now, Jaren Jackson is a different offensive player. You have Jalen Wells and Zach Edey. And Ja Morant has had a good season, but it isn't the season that I think Memphis and their fan base has been used to seeing Ja, and it's not what they expect. Or, they're looking for more Ja. And I don't know if the Memphis Grizzlies feel like maybe the Noah LaRoche offense is good, but maybe it's not our cup of tea for the guy that we have as the face of our franchise. And to go back a little bit, and I'm kind of scatterbrained, so I apologize. But when you look at some of the things that the Memphis Grizzlies did in the offseason, it kind of points to them feeling like there was a chance that Ilo could be their coach. When you think about his philosophy offensively, and some of those elements have shown up in the Grizzlies, right? When you think about how they are in transition, that's one of his main points with his teams that he coached, was pushing the pace, playing extremely hard. It reflects it in the minutes. When you look at the amount of minutes guys are playing, there's a lot of balance, like it was in the Euro League, where a lot of guys were playing because he wants his guys to be on the floor. And this is I'm referencing a video that I seen on like the Eurobasket channel or something, when I was making my Memphis Grizzly video from months ago when I first found out about Ilo. He's trying to push the pace, and he wants you to play as fast as you can, as hard as you can for stretches. So what happens is everybody minutes, they don't take a big decline, but instead of playing a guy for 35 minutes, Ilo rather plays you for 30 minutes, and he'll give you 6 more minutes to rest so that you're ensured that you can play hard for those 30 minutes that you're out there. Instead of having to play 36 minutes and you have a couple spots throughout certain quarters where you kind of have to dial it back because you're trying to also rest and you're not giving your all and you take a couple plays off. No, instead of taking plays off, hey, we'll cut down your minutes. You play your ass off, run fast, play hard. We're going to get out in transition. We're going to boom, 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 boom. And when you need your break for a minute or two, we have enough bodies that we're going to, hey, Scottie Pippen Jr., get out there. Ja, come sit down for a couple minutes. And once you re-energize already, we throw you right back out there. You give us another stretch of 5 to 6 minutes playing hard at 100% speed, and we're gonna make other teams pay in transition. And that reflects a little bit with the Memphis Grizzlies this year. A thing that was big for me was the Zach Edey drafting, and I think that may have been a perfect pair, even no matter who the head coach was or whatnot. But when you just think about what he likes to do, I think the Zach Edey pick says a lot. You know what I mean? With the Gortat screens, with the Verjao screens, and how they'll be able to manipulate a lot of the stuff, as far as how they want to run their offense with screening and cutting. A lot of the decisions that they made or have made so far, or the lack thereof at the trade deadline, I think maybe reflect that they were going in this direction. And this could be me overthinking. I'm not here to say that this is a fact. I'm just pointing out every potential factor that could have played a part. Like I said, there's a reality in a world where the Memphis Grizzlies just did not like what they've seen over the last 2.5 months since the calendar is turned. You know what I mean? For you to only have one win over a really good team, and that team be the Mavericks, who we know were banged up severely on March 7th. Like the Mavericks haven't been the Mavericks. Their record at March 7th didn't reflect the product that they were putting on the floor. And for that to be your only legitimate win over a legitimate team over the last few months or a couple of months, that's bad. That's bad. But again, I guess for a lot of us, including myself, it's the timing. Because even though it's been bad, most of the coaches get an opportunity to kind of ride it out and see what they can do in the playoffs. You get the right series, you get the right matchup, and you never know. Something can happen, especially when you have the talent the Grizzlies have with Ja, Jaren, and Desmond Bane, and then all of the others, and the depth. Something could happen. Now, I do see a world where I go back to the offensive production from Ja Morant. I see a world where maybe Noah LaRoche offensive system wasn't the best for this team and the best players and the guys that they need to be playing at their best to go up a different level. You remove that. You bring in Thomas Ilo. He's able to run his offense. These guys are going to play fast. There's going to be a lot of screening to create room. There's going to be a lot of cutting. And it's going to be a lot of manipulation that allows these guys to get easy, quick buckets and three-point shots. And I think they have the roster that's going to fit perfectly with what he wants to do. You have a big like Zach Edey, who's going to be able to clear space with his screening. He's going to be able to screen hard, and it's going to take guys out of plays and get you at an advantage. And it's going to allow Ja Morant to be able to get downhill. And when Ja Morant is able to get downhill and play his game, it makes the Grizzlies 10 times better, because it generates shots for a Desmond Bane and a Luke Kennards and a Jalen Wells and a Santi Aldamas and even a Jaren Jacksons. And it just puts so much pressure on teams, you know what I mean? And again, you're playing fast, you're getting easy buckets, easy looks, and it just keeps everybody on edge, and it weaponizes the entire floor. And then once, a couple of guys hit a couple shots, the defense has to now pick their poison. And if you have a offensive philosophy like Noah LaRoche's, where you remove that, with certain rosters and certain teams, it sounds intriguing and it looks intriguing and there can be success. But when you have a guy like Ja Morant, who is as dynamic as a guard that we have in the NBA as far as getting downhill and creating advantages for his team, I think you kind of wastefully using an asset that you have. And, that could be a factor in it as well. I'm very interested to see the direction that the Memphis Grizzlies go. I think Tomas Ilo is a phenomenal coach with an incredible basketball brain. And again, I think what I've seen or what I was able to learn about him in his prior stops before coming over to the NBA, this roster with his philosophy, I don't know if it's going to happen immediately. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it all click and make sense as soon as the playoffs. But I think they're going to like the decision that they made. And again, this is coming from somebody who has said nothing but positive things about Taylor Jenkins. I like Taylor Jenkins. I can't wait to see what's next for him. But this is ultimately a decision that the Memphis Grizzlies had to make. And I do believe in what I said. Ilo wasn't going to be an assistant coach that was going to sit on the bench next to Taylor Jenkins for the next 4 years for the Memphis Grizzlies. That just wasn't going to be the case. As soon as the Grizzlies pick him up, his name became a hot commodity. It became such a hot commodity. And with everything that's going on around the NBA world, with the coaches and how much coaching is constantly changing every single year, somebody is leaving abruptly or getting fired out of nowhere. You got coaches getting fired on winning teams like Taylor Jenkins, Adrian Griffin. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a cutthroat business. I mean, Coach Bud is in the first year with the Suns. I don't even know if Coach Bud is going to be back. And they, that's now like 2 coaches in 2 years in the way that they look. There's just so much going on around the league. Billy Donovan and the Chicago Bulls, they're playing great as of late. So what does that look like? Chauncey Billups looked like a for sure guy that wasn't going to be able to return as the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. They played good, as of recent to end the year in the second half of the season. They look like a totally different team. What are they going to do? The Wizards and the Hornets, are they cutting slack for their coaches because they're young and just not talented? Or are they going to say, hey, nah, we still don't like what we have? You know what I mean? Like, is there a playoff team that's going to choke in the playoffs this year and, kind of crumble, and somebody else is going to say, hey, no, we want to go a different direction? That's how coaching is. And when you have a guy that is sought after with the basketball genius that they're saying, and some of this stuff is genius that he's using in his offensive philosophy. I still have to tap into his defensive clinic that I've seen on YouTube. That's a couple hours. I'm gonna tap into that as well and see his philosophy behind some of that. But what he did in the EuroLeague with a Paris club on 127 offensive rating, that's unheard of. And when the NBA saw that he came over, and they, once somebody comes over to the NBA, like myself, when I seen his name come over, I'm like, who is this guy? And I did my research, and like everybody else is doing, it becomes intriguing. And then you watch the Grizzlies and you see certain things be implemented, and you see how they are transitionally. They are just phenomenal when you talk about points per possession and how fast they're getting out and everything like that. You see some of his philosophies getting over. And now that he has full reins, we'll be able to see the full philosophy implemented on this roster. And that's what makes me feel like they're going to be happy with the decision they made. I think it's no reflection over Taylor Jenkins. It's nothing negative to him. It's just that, again, like I said earlier in the video, you're at a point right now where you're the Memphis Grizzlies and you're looking at your situation and you're looking at the rest of the Western Conference and the rest of the NBA, and you're trying to ask yourself and figure out, how do we elevate this team? Realistically, we weren't able to trade for Luka Doncic. Like, everybody can't just go and say, hey, you want Luka? Like, what you want for Luka? Like, everybody doesn't have that luxury. So what are the Memphis Grizzlies going to do? And they made a decision to go with a guy that seems like he's going to have it all figured out for this particular roster. And then again, you're going to go on the offseason, and I think a lot of the things that he's looking for and what he wants, climbing with this stamp now of firing Taylor Jenkins and going this direction, we're going to further see that in the offseason, and we're going to see moves be made to further go into what he wants to do. And in these playoffs, if we're able to see some type of change as soon as the playoffs, whether now Ja Morant starts to look different the last couple of weeks of the year, or whenever he's fully healthy from his shoulder situation or whatever, they're going to go into the offseason and they're going to double and triple down on what they do. I don't know what moves that's going to be. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I would watch the Memphis Grizzlies closely in the offseason to see what they're going to do to further acclimate Ilo and what he wants to do offensively and defensively. But again, I like the move overall. It took some time, surface level. You're walking around or you're doing whatever you're doing in a moment, and you look at your phone and you say Taylor Jenkins fired, and you're like, wait, the Grizzlies coach, the Grizzlies that have a 44-29 record, why they just fire their coach? But then when you start to think for a second, you connect some dots, and you take a second to really analyze the Grizzlies in their situation, you walk away with it saying, okay, I can see some of this, and it makes a little bit of sense. Again, we're still going to kind of be like, because of the timing. We're just not used to seeing this, and we never should get used to seeing this. But ultimately, I can see this working out for the Memphis Grizzlies. As always, I am Pee Wee the Plug. This is Pee Wee the Plug. I appreciate y'all. As always, stay locked in. Basketball season is about to turn up with the playoffs right around the corner. Y'all know how we get for the playoffs. I've been locked in with Teed Up. We've been doing a lot of college basketball stuff, but there's nothing like Pee Wee the Plug. Playoffs, offseason, NBA draft, trade deadline stuff. We locked in. It's almost time for that playoff basketball, baby. Let's get it. Peace.